I am Nadine Lucas, and welcome to Abstract Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She is Australian poet, academic, and author of The Gray Between, no other than Miss Nadine Ellis. Yes, welcome to Abstract Essay, Miss Nadine. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Thank you, Daniel. No, I think you pretty well covered it. I must say, I've just retired from academia this June. So after 12 years of teaching into medical radiations, I have hung up my gown, and which is just lovely. So now I can concentrate full time on my writing, which is just a joy to me because I sort of had to put it on the back burner for a little while teaching. So it's as you can appreciate, quite a heavy focus and time commitment. But it's been lovely to do that. I still am a teaching, or no, I shouldn't say teaching, sorry, a registered and practicing radiographer by trade, and obviously mother of 4 daughters and a poet. So I think you covered everything.
Yes, a poet indeed. So, Miss Nadine, let's talk about the power of resilience growing through pain and trauma.
So I think these sort of things are things that we've all basically experienced at some point, or sort of delve into it without sort of really realizing until we're on the other side of it. And then we register that, oh, okay, that was a traumatic experience, or that was very painful. But often when you're in the midst of it, it's really hard to sort of see what's going on. And for me, writing was always a means to sort of be able to work through my experiences. And I'm neurodivergent, so for me, verbally sort of expressing myself was always quite challenging. Whereas I found writing my feelings down or writing my experiences down really helped me to sort of be able to see what was going on and to reflect on people's responses to me, or how I was sort of being perceived within the world, or just gave me a way of being able to sort of work through what was going on in my head. And I think it gave me a sort of a channel to form resilient sort of behaviors or strategies. And I think we all need something at the end of the day, whether it's being able to speak with someone about what is going on. Just having a sounding board sometimes helps us to sort of be able to move through awful times. For me, I probably had people around me, but I didn't recognize that. And so for me, I felt I didn't have that support. So I was more internalized, and my way of approaching that was on paper. So resilience is something that we all have, but whether we have the capacity to sort of recognize that, or we've built strategies to sort of deal with pain and trauma is another thing. And sometimes this does come quite later, after we've sort of managed to get through stuff. I'm not sure if I've really covered what you were asking there, Daniel.
Miss Nadine, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And what's the biggest misconception people have about resilience?
Oh, wow, actually, I wouldn't even know where to start with that one. I think for me, I've just stated it. I think people have it. It's just whether they can tune into it and realize that they can be resilient, and they don't need to stay in awful situations. I can appreciate that sometimes, like past history for me. I was in a first marriage that was imploding badly, and I was being emotionally and psychologically, a little bit of physically sort of, the abuse was there, and I didn't see it at the time. And I think often we need the people around us to sort of say, hey, listen, this is what's going on. And I think we need to then be able to hear that. And so I think, well, what would be the biggest misconception? I think don't be afraid to actually say those challenging things to the people that you care about. And sometimes they just need a bit of a wake-up call and say, hey, look at the situation around you. Maybe enough of, what am I trying to say? I think maybe if more people actually sort of challenged what was going on or what they could see is going on to other people, then maybe a lot of us wouldn't necessarily have to be in those awful situations for so long.
Miss Nadine, how do you define true resilience beyond just bouncing back?
I don't know if we necessarily just totally bounce back. I think whatever we've experienced stays with us. That's what makes us who we are. But it's how you progress through and you go from A to B. And that journey along the way is basically what's building the resilience for us. So, Daniel, would you mind just saying that question one more time, please?
What's or how do you define true resilience beyond just bouncing back?
Yeah, I think it's sort of, are you comfortable with who you have become at the other end of it? So
Yes.
if you are, then your resilience is there and you've managed to sort of create a new pathway that you're comfortable with. And comfort is it's probably a bit of a loose term here because you don't want to be in a comfort zone. People don't really grow when they're in the comfort zone. So you do want to push yourself out of that. That's where the real living and progressing and building of your own person or personality enters into sort of its true form. So you want to be happy with where you have landed and be willing to keep going forward. And I think that's the real measure of resilience. And so the definition isn't, it's not that we bounce right back. It's knowing that those scars are there. We don't necessarily have to forgive, but we need to accept. And it's not like you have to necessarily challenge the person who did those things to you or confront them. I'm never one for confrontation. I feel for me it just doesn't work. But I'm good at sort of accepting that people's behaviour may not necessarily be directly because of something that I've done. Often we bounce back on each other, and it's often person might be sort of directing or projecting their issues onto me or to other people. And so I think it's this acceptance of, well, people are people, and if the person that's doing something to me is doing something that doesn't make me happy or it's mistreating me or it's not making me feel good about my life, then maybe they're not worth spending your time with. And I think it's recognizing when it's time to move on. That also helps with your resilience too, and sort of understanding that we have the strength within ourselves to make choices that will give us joy. And I think it's worth pursuing those.
Very well said, Miss Nadine. And let's talk about the science and psychology of resilience. What happens neurologically when we develop resilience?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm probably not in that sort of field that I could answer from a theoretical baseline. But I think our brains are so they have the plasticity within our brains to sort of be able to create new pathways. And I think if we're doing things that give us joy and we've lowered our cortisol levels and we're feeling basically happy about life, or as if we can move through life knowing that there is light at the end of whatever we're going through, whatever challenge. And I think this is good for our soul and good for us. And I think even a layperson can acknowledge that if it feels good, then it's usually okay. If it feels bad, then it's not good. And I think I'd be leaning more towards the things that you feel are good for you, and against eventually the brain pathway will reciprocate. Yeah.
Miss Nadine, how does unresolved trauma physically change the brain and body?
Well, I think we very much have the capacity to make ourselves sick. And I think if you're always sort of holding on to pain and suffering, a lot of uh, our bodies are just amazing things. And I think if we have that going through us all the time, you're looking at people that will eventually succumb to some sort of illness. And I think that's why it's really vital to not be doing things that will hurt us. So yeah, I mean, you go through life theoretically trying to put good food into our bodies and to exercise and keep healthy, but when it comes to our brains, why would you be sort of constantly putting toxic thoughts into your sort of mindset? And I think those are the things you need to also be thinking good things, good thoughts, be positive, be mindful of the situations that you find yourself in, and try to be positive. And this in turn, if you're practicing that every day, this becomes your life. And I think that's the strongest part of resilience, is that if you're practicing being present, mindful, positive, then eventually that becomes your norm.
Yes, definitely. And can resilience be measured or cultivated, or is it something you're born with?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I mean, I'd really love to sort of get a professional's opinion on all of this, but for me, I personally feel that we have the capacity. I know I have the capacity, as I have moved through things that have been very challenging for me in my life, and I just basically got on with it, recognized what I needed to do, and just moved through it. And I didn't feel that I was any special or any different from anybody else. I just kind of recognized, well, I've got to work hard at it. These are the things I need to do, and just went on and did it. And a lot of people will come up to me and say, "Oh, well, it's really great," but it didn't feel any special at the time. So I think this is the thing. Often when we do things, we don't necessarily think it's anything out of the ordinary, and often it's just what appears to be the ordinary, everyday things are the things that get us through. So again, I probably digress from your question, Daniel.
No worries at all. No worries at all, Miss Nadine. And let's talk about the personal stories. What was your darkest moment of pain and what shifted to help you move forward?
Well, I think the writing helped me to move through things. I've had several sort of things along the way, ranging from look, I was in a really bad train crash when I was 9 years of age, and that post traumatic stress disorder that eventuated from it has always sort of been there. So writing for me about that period or that experience helped me process those emotions and that experience. And and I think something traumatic that occurs to anybody, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a train crash, But something so early on in a developing brain can impact upon your personality. So for me, it's a life-changing event that does change your personality to an extent. So I think we've all kind of, if we're young enough and we experience these sort of things, it all has shifted us. So for me, being able to sort of write and express myself and therefore work through that particular episode was really beneficial. And eventually I managed to actually write some poetry about it. And now I see it for what it is. I'm much older now, but I know that post-traumatic stress kind of always is there, even though I went through and had professional therapy to help work through it. But I think, scars stay with us, and those things are what make us down the track. So if you get a person who's just had one thing after another sort of thrown at them, they probably turn out a little bit differently from what they might have when they were younger. But you never know, and there's no going back. We just play out our lives, basically. So I guess it's your perception and your mindset to get through and move on. But for me, that was probably something that sort of affected me very early on.
Totally mindset, people. Mindset is the key to success. And Miss Nadine, as a Australian poet, academic, and author of The Grey Between, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Well, it's talking about the new book that's released now. It was released in July, so it's sort of sharing the content messages in it, and it's basically, I write about everyday trauma in everyday life, basically, but my other themes are like motherhood and relationships and just being. And so I want to share a lot of that with the rest of the people out there, and to let them know that they're not alone in their experiences, that we all experience these things in a variety of ways. And currently in the midst of writing my second book. So it's finding time to sort of sit and write, which I love doing, and then obviously trying to sort of market the book that I have written as well. So it's a busy time, but fun. It's enjoyable. And I get to speak with you, lovely Daniel.
Enjoyable indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your goals, Miss Nadine, and looking forward for more success and good luck. And what
Thank
will be
you.
your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Like a writer
A
or
writer,
happy?
yes.
I think you just got to start writing. I think often we stall ourselves because we don't think we're any good, and it's a bit of that sort of imposter syndrome. Like, someone's going to tap me on the back, the shoulder, and say, "Hey, what are you doing here?" But I think ultimately, if you get joy from expressing yourself, whether you want to write books, screenplays, poetry, short stories, it doesn't really matter. It's just do it. Put pen to paper and start just getting those words out. And if you're not a pen to paper person, just get the keyboard out and start plonking away. And I think that process of trying to get the words out on paper is the best start. Read lots of books. So if you're interested in becoming a poet, read lots of poetry, lots and lots, and different types. Go to poetry readings, open mics, events. Immerse yourself in that world, because that's what you want to do, or that's what gives you joy. So the best way to sort of learn your craft is exposure to it, and practice, practice, practice.
Practice make you perfect.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. And Miss Nadine, thank you for that advice. And what would be your recommended book or books that influenced your journey?
Well, I will speak to the poets that I've enjoyed reading, and I love anything by Sharon Olds. She's I love the American poets probably per se. So Sharon Olds, Gregory Orr, who else is there? I love the romanticism of Emily Dickinson, the Sylvia Plath, and even probably more current, the work of the late Andrea Gibson. I love their work as well. So, but I think, poetry is one of those things you have to read a lot to then realize the authors that you like. They're the ones that resonate with you. So, yeah, it's kind of, poetry's not for everybody, but if you find people that you like to read, then it's just joyous.
Definitely. Thank you for that recommended books, Miss Nadine. And what's one small step listeners or viewers can take today to start growing through their pain?
Yeah, I think it's I think the very first one is to recognize that you're in it. If you accept that something is happening around you and you're feeling unhappy or you're feeling like you're in pain, then that's the first start. Seek some professional help if you need it. If you've got no one else to sort of talk and express what's going on, that's really important. And if you have the opportunity, for me, I found writing things down really helped. Finding something that you can zone into. So it doesn't necessarily have to be writing. It could be anything, like if you like doing craft or painting or gardening. Sometimes just sort of being in a quiet space and zoning in on something where it just sort of, the rest of the world just floats away. That can be enough to sort of give you joy, so that you've got a nice grounding base to then be able to work and get some strength to get yourself through things.
Well, empowering answer, Miss Nadine. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please to listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in fourth season, as well as my movie 101 review and music 101, Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Miss Nadine, what gives you the most hope about the human capacity to overcome?
Oh, that's another great question, Daniel. What gives me the? I don't know. I think it really, at the end of the day, I can only speak for myself. So my mindset is always thinking I must keep moving forward, and so I do. And I may not know where I'm going, but I think as long as I can wake up in the morning and climb out of bed and get up, then there is hope for whatever I want to do. And that sometimes is just enough. I think it's like just knowing that tomorrow is a new day and we can always start afresh. And we color our world with our attitude. So if we have a positive attitude, then we have the capacity to make things happen for us that are good.
Miss Nadine Ellis, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your book, The Gray Between?
Yes, by all means, thank you. Yes, so The Grey Between is available on globally on Amazon. And yeah, please purchase it. It'll be a
Yes.
nice read for you. So
Yes, people.
So if anyone also would like to see any of my other work, I am on Instagram at Nadine Ellis Poetry, so that's all one word. And also my author site is www.nadineellis.com. So NADINEELLIS.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Nadine Ellis, because if you support her, for sure, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Miss Nadine, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Pleasure.
More to come, people. See you soon.